Hello, and welcome to the Nerds Now Playing podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things nerdy, including movies, video games, and entertainment. I'm your host, Devin, and with me is,
Tim, hey, how's it going, guys?
and I should say, this is being recorded at the Feely Creative Podcast in Salina, Kansas. Tim, how are you doing this week?
Beyond just in general tired, but that's partly my own fault. I'm doing well. This is the first week in a while in which I haven't had like any obligations in the evening or I'm finally free to start doing what I want to again.
That's nice.
It is. I finally have had enough time to start, like I can watch a few shows, which I've been watching through a little bit more of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with my game group, and I have finally started a new game since I finally finished the Danganronpa series a couple weeks ago. So I have started Demon's Souls, which is the predecessor to the Dark Souls series. Initially came out on the PS3. And recently, as of like last year, there was a PS5 remaster, but it's weirdly only available on either PS3 or PS5. So I thankfully, one of my theater buddies happened to have a PS3 that he was willing to let me borrow along with the game. So I've only really played through the first, like the tutorial and like the first level, as it were, then defeated like the first main boss. So I have a ways to go in it, but
So this is Demon Souls? And this precedes Dark Souls, which I have not played either series, so I'm a little less familiar with them.
Gotcha. Yeah, Demon Souls. It's the kind of the first one that FromSoft came out with when Miyazaki signed on, I believe, as like the main director. And so it is similarly set in that kind of medieval style video game. And like the rest of the Dark Souls series, it doesn't have a difficulty setting. It just is as difficult as it is. It does have a thing that's a little bit different. There's a system in it called World Tendency, which I guess I don't fully understand it yet, but I think it's either if you die too often or if you do certain things, the tendency will either go from like pure white to like pure black, which if it's pure black, things get harder, I think. If it's pure white, things are not necessarily easier, but certain options open up to you, I guess. But there is an unfortunate thing, which they kind of brought back for Dark Souls 2, but in this game, if you die, which you will die a lot because it's essentially Dark Souls. You go back to this place that I don't remember the name of off the top of my head right now. That's kind of like it's called the Nexus, which is a hub world kind of thing.
Okay.
And when you die, you lose your physical body, so you're basically more or less just a spirit at that point. And when you're in spirit form, your health is halved. And you can't get your body back to get like full health until you either use an item which I think are called ephemeral eyes, which allow you like to regain your physical body, or you defeat another boss. So I tried going up again. I defeated the main boss for this first level, and I got my body back, and then I decided there is an area where there's this I think it's Old King Doran is the character, is the NPC name, that he will, if you challenge him, he can give you like a super like great sword apparently it's just really, really good. But right now, at least as far as my health goes and everything else, he can one-shot me extremely easily. So you either have to, apparently you have to get him down to 25% of his health, and then he'll give you the sword. And I've tried a few different times. My main sword, like apparently if you can get backstabs, it's better, but I haven't been able to do that yet. And then I got a pike to try against him, and that is effective, but only like 3 HP at a time. And to get him down to like 25%, it's like 500 health. So it would probably take me an hour just poking at him to do it. So I'm moving on for now. I'll come back and reface him.
And now you played Dark Souls as
yes,
well?
I have played all 3 Dark Souls games as well as Elden Ring.
Okay, and so Demon Souls precedes Dark Souls.
Yes.
And Dark Souls, of course, precedes Elden Ring.
Correct.
Now I've started Elden Ring and I'm playing through that currently. I'm on a little hiatus right now. But how would you, since that's like an early version of the game, how would you compare it to like Elden Ring?
Well, I mean, it's certainly like the gameplay and like the enemies and stuff are slower. Much like Dark Souls 1 compared to Elden Ring, like the gameplay in general is a lot slower. So it's a lot easier to anticipate when enemies are going to attack you and to kind of formulate a strategy. If you've played any of the other Dark Souls series, it's actually so far, at least like understanding the mechanics is easier. Being in a lower level is not necessarily easy because I went into one of the other worlds that's available after you defeat like the first main boss. Like 4 other areas open up, and there was one that's the equivalent or like the granddad or dad of everyone's least favorite area in Dark Souls 1, which is Blighttown. And the area that I found is called the Valley of Defilement. And I am perhaps a little underleveled for that area, apparently, because I tried to go through it, and the enemies there not only can throw things that will poison you, which will kill you faster, but it takes like 5 swings with my sword to kill them, and they also swarm you. So I tried to go through that. Like, I maybe spent like a half hour to an hour just trying to make it through, and I'm like, you know what, I can't. I'm gonna come back to this because just can't handle it right now. But so in comparison, like that way, the combat's a lot slower. So in a lot of ways, this probably will be easier to get through. Because like once you get to like Bloodborne and Sekiro and well, even Dark Souls 3, the combat starts to get really fast, and you have to like split second react to bosses. I mean, you've started to play Elden Ring, so you know what that reaction time is like,
Uh-huh.
at least a little bit anyway. And so the bosses are a lot more easily able to kind of anticipate in the earlier games. I do really love Elden Ring. I do think it's currently the most accessible FromSoft game that's out there to newcomers anyway. So, but I'm a big fan. So
So that was Demon Souls that you're
yes, that's
occupying your time
that's
with.
what I'm playing.
So that sounds really fun.
It's pretty fun.
And
You finally started playing the newest God of War, correct?
I did just start it. I haven't gotten very far into it because then more things kept interrupting my week. But I did start the game probably about just 3 hours into it. So there's a lot of opening story stuff I'm still getting through. But so far it's more God of War, which I love the first. Well, it's not the first God of War, but
The 2018
the
one.
2018
Yeah.
God of War. So I'm looking forward to playing more of that. So I've been eager to play because I just wrapped up The Last of Us Part 2, which I finished a couple weeks ago. So God of War is going to Ragnarok's going to be my new game that I'm hopefully going to get through.
Your new obsession.
Yes, it's going to be my hiatus game until I come back to Elden Ring myself. But in the meantime, I've been watching a new show on Netflix that came out recently called Beef.
I've heard of that. I don't know much about it.
Stars Ali Wong and Steven Yeun, and it's a show about these two characters cross paths with each other, and they really upset each other, and they have a beef between them. That's what the show's about.
Okay.
But this beef between them that starts with a road rage incident in the first episode. And I should say, like, Ali Wong's character, Amy, is she's a successful entrepreneur who's, if I remember right, she's trying to sell her business name to like a bigger company, like a big buyout kind of thing, so they can have more money and retire or something on that. So anyways, but she's a successful character, whereas Steven's character, Danny, is I shouldn't say down on his luck, but he's more of a he's kind of like a schemer kind of character. Like his business and how he's earned a living is like he's not been really good at any one particular thing. So he's not a con artist per se, but he's done a different route in terms of making money that's a little more on the shady side.
Gotcha.
But he's always never quite made it in life, and so he's always kind of like playing catch up or something. So
like flying by the seat of his pants.
Yeah, a little bit. So it's a little bit different situation to the character of Amy. So that creates a little bit of resentment towards maybe like a little bit more lower middle class versus upper
Yeah,
class,
yeah.
maybe a little bit, but they have this beef that started from a road rage incident.
Mm.
And the thing that's interesting about the show is this beef that they have, because they each try to one up each other throughout this season, the
Mm.
series, and by doing so, they are basically ruining each other's lives by
Oh,
continuing
wow.
the to do this beef between them and get back at each other.
Oh, gotcha.
And because then it starts affecting their families, their careers,
Oh, wow.
their standing in the community, and so it's a really fascinating show. Or really, it's really funny for one,
Mhm.
and it can get really dark a little
Okay.
bit too. But it's really interesting to see these characters try to destroy themselves and that their lives get so unraveled. And then by the end, you're just like these people, if they just cooled, if they just chilled on the situation just a little bit. So it's a very good show. I think I'd recommend it too.
And that's on Netflix, you said?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah. Has a great cast in it. Uh, Ali Wong does a great job in this series. She has it really does some really good performance
Mm.
in the show. So one that I recommend. So we kept skipping to the next episode after every one. So we just kind of binged through that over the last
Nice. Okay.
five or so days. But that was Beef on Netflix. So
All
that's
right.
one that I made time for it to watch. So that
I'll
one was
definitely have to
really
check
good.
that out. I have been watching a few reruns of if you have the HBO Max app, all the old Whose Line Is It Anyway episodes are on there, or
Oh yeah.
or most of them are on there. So in between like lunch and when I'm not playing something or doing something else, I've been watching a few episodes of that again, just because it brings me joy. So,
Well,
but
joy is important when you watch anything, isn't it?
it's true. I would hope so anyway.
Well, speaking of joy, you know what brings me joy to watch?
What brings you joy?
Creature features.
I do love a few of those. Yeah,
And creature features was the topic, is our mini topic for today.
that's right.
Because later in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Cocaine Bear.
Oh yeah.
So, in honor of Cocaine Bear, we were going to talk about some of our favorite creature features,
Mm.
and specifically, and I know from your listeners, maybe steers a little bit away from this, but that's okay. More man versus beast, or
Hmm.
I don't know, wild animal, maybe.
Well, I'd say it's kind of both. I mean, there's I was looking at the definition of creature feature, which I guess technically is more like monster oriented most of the time.
Yeah.
And like Cocaine Bear is very like man versus beast kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I
Bear.
think we can do both.
Uh huh.
If we're going like straight up creature features, I do have a favorite overall, and
Okay.
it is and will always be Gremlins. That movie is just it's so funny and both like actually creepy and scary at times. And just what like I the puppeting is extremely well done. I just love everything about that movie. In fact, I mean, if you, I know Devin, you've been in my office, and anybody who has been in my office knows that I have not only a couple little Gremlins up on my shelf, I have a small thing of Gizmo on my desk, and Devin, you found me an original '80s Gremlins lunchbox,
I did.
which now sits in a place of honor in my office as well. So I'm a huge fan of Gremlins. I like Gremlins 2 as well, although not quite as much as the first one. I don't know. I'm curious what your opinion on this is. Do you consider Gremlins a Christmas movie?
Um, yeah, I do because I mean it's set in Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is very heavily themed around, and one attacks a character by jumping
Yeah.
out of a Christmas
Oh
tree.
yeah.
So, and I think part of there's a, unless I'm misremembering, but I think there's one part where that takes place in a toy shop, maybe.
Yes, there
And
is.
so this is Christmas, so it's very Christmas. So yeah,
Yeah.
it takes place in the characters are acknowledging Christmas is happening
Mm.
too, and I think in the movie too. So yeah, I'd say it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely one that I try and watch every year. It's like a tradition for me to watch Gremlins. And I like I said, I mean, and the theme as well is like super iconic. I just think it's fantastic. And there's actually a soon, I don't know how soon, but on HBO Max, I think there's a Gremlins animated show that's coming out that will
Oh
have
yeah,
yeah. I think it might just be called Mogwai, or maybe it's just called Gremlins. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to be. I have seen a teaser. It looks fun. I don't know if I'm gonna like it as much as I like the movie. But by far as like actual like creature features go, Gremlins is my top. It has to be.
I mean, I do like some Gremlins, and I think it's a good starter show for when you're younger, maybe because it's not. I mean, the first one I definitely think is scarier than the second one,
Oh, absolutely. The second one is just
but
goofy as hell.
I think you have uh, the Mugwai are still
Hmm.
cute
Oh
in
yeah.
it, and what I liked about Gremlins growing up and now still is like uh, the bad Mugwai and bad Gremlins.
Mm,
Well, Gremlins I guess are bad, but there's the bad Mugwai for
yeah.
sure. But I like that they each have their like own little designs and their own
Hmm.
little characteristics
Yeah.
that they then exaggerate and go
Once they become
even more
Gremlins.
crazy into Gremlins 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
So I always liked like because I think who's the main one in the first movie? Spike or
As the bad one?
yeah,
Yeah,
Stripe? Is it Spike or Stripe?
I think it's Stripe.
Because he has the mohawk or
Yeah.
something like that. But I always thought that was really cool. Like,
Yeah.
he's Stripe and he's the leader, but
Hmm.
everyone else has like these features as a Mugwai that kind of translate then into the Gremlin form.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but I always liked the Gremlins movie, so I think it's a
Hmm.
good creature feature. Plus, Gremlins do exist, so
It's true. It's what I think it's what like World War II pilots would blame their airplane failures on Gremlins. That was
yeah,
before the movie came out.
that's
So,
right. Yeah,
actually, if you like things like Gremlins, I actually haven't seen it, but Critters is another one that's kind of very similar in that vein.
yeah.
And I think Chud is similar in that vein as well, which
I haven't heard of that one.
it stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers.
Hmm.
I have seen a trailer for it. It looks like a fun time, but it's definitely in like that kind of B movie horror genre.
So when talking about like Man versus Beast,
Hmm.
I was kind of having a hard time coming up with a list off the top of my head, but I looked up and I was like, oh yeah, because creature features kind of do. I was able to think of a lot of like more alien or monster ones,
Mm.
but there was a couple in that I was looking up that I remembered that I do like a lot, and of course my main one that I like a lot is Jaws.
It's a great movie.
So that's always been a good classic of mine. I've watched that so many times. I think it's a
Hmm.
great movie. Perfect one almost, in fact.
I
Um,
you know I agree. I would agree with that. And we were listening actually maybe a week or two ago. There's a podcast similar at least that I really like called the Soundtrack Show that breaks down the music of certain things in different shows and different movies. And he did a couple episodes on Jaws, and we listened to the first part. But just kind of breaking down that score, and it's really iconic, and it's really in kind of two separate things. But so I would encourage anybody to check out that show. But yeah, Jaws is fantastic. Jurassic Park, I know, is like your favorite movie of all time.
yeah, and for this list, I mean, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time. But for this, I came up with a little list of some of my favorite Man
Mm,
vs. Beast type movies,
okay.
and I actually listed Jurassic Park 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's actually surprising.
Why did I do this? Well, Jurassic Park 3 of that.
Isn't that the one where it's in the city? Or is
Uh,
that two?
that's two. Two.
Okay.
Well, the end takes place in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but Jurassic Park 3 is kind of like an express Jurassic Park film, I think. So it runs at like an hour and a half.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's a not a very long movie. So, but it gets right to the what you really want to see, which is dinosaurs
Mm,
attacking people. So I've always liked Jurassic Park 3. I mean, it's not like the best story for
yeah.
sure. It's pretty thin on story, but it gets right to what you want to see, which is dinosaurs eating people. And given the length of the time, I think it's a really good quick watch if you're like needing
Mm-hmm.
you need to watch something on a Saturday or something. But I've always liked Jurassic Park 3.
Solid choice.
And when I was looking up Jurassic Park 3, I also was kind of thinking about you had on your list, I saw you had King Kong 1933.
Yeah, the original King Kong
Eh,
is probably one of the best creature features or like Man vs. Beast movies. And it's also like the first movie that actually has its own original score. Like absolutely, it's actually the first. I think if I'm correct in my thinking,
Interesting.
it's really well done. I mean, obviously not all the effects necessarily hold up today, but I think like what they did for King Kong himself, like the stop motion, I still think it looks really good. You know, there's a the way they were having to move around the creature, it actually kind of makes like the fur as it is
Yeah, their
on the
fingerprints on the
on the
models.
model. Yeah, and it just makes it look kind of even more realistic.
Uh-huh.
I just think like that movie is it's so pivotal. Not only just like not the score itself, but the effects that they used in it. It just in the history of cinema. It's a really well done movie and it's worth watching. It's absolutely one of my favorites.
And since you had King Kong on your list,
Hmm.
that was making from 1933. That was making me think again about King Kong 2005 from Peter Jackson.
Mm.
Have you seen that one?
I've seen bits of it. I need to see the whole thing. I have seen one of the scenes that was actually cut out of the original movie, which is the one where they're fighting all the giant bugs.
Uh-huh.
There was supposed to be something similar like that in the original one, but they just didn't have the budget.
Uh-huh. And that bug attack scene in King Kong 2005 is probably one of the most disturbing scenes in
Oh,
that movie.
absolutely.
It's very creepy how they do that. Andy Serkis is a character in that movie too,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets
Is he the one that's the giant leech?
he gets like it leeches his head and starts
Uh-huh.
consuming his head. Is like the way it's just that scene comes out, and I should say like King Kong. But back up a little bit because Peter Jackson made that. That was what like a passion project
Yeah.
for him, and I was really excited to see it because this is coming off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy,
Mm.
and I was really interested in seeing what Peter Jackson does not in Middle Earth, like just like a
Right.
different setting because we had just gone through like 10 hours of Lord of the Rings, but
Mm-hmm.
which is not a bad thing. But I was super interested in seeing what he does with King Kong because then it had the well, it's not like Jurassic Park, but it is because they're in a jungle. They're doing there
Mm-hmm.
are dinosaurs in this.
Yeah.
They have dinosaurs, bugs. They have
Whatever like the arm crawler things are, which fun fact about the original, the only reason why they don't have legs is because they didn't have the budget for it.
huh. But King Kong's like a mash of all these things.
Oh, it really is. It's so good.
And like I don't revisit that King Kong movie a lot because it is
Mm-hmm.
a very long movie, and it is upsetting for me when a T-Rex and Kong fight. But
Mm. Do you want the T-Rex to win?
I do. It was very sad. But if you watch the movie, the T-Rex goes in pretty graphic, horrible ways. So
Oh, dang.
like King Kong is not messing around. But that bug scene that you mentioned was definitely creepy because it just kind of like I feel like Peter Jackson's just indulging himself maybe a little bit.
Mm.
It's like he's just doing what everything could be fun and interesting, and so they this movie's happening, and then they
Yeah.
just kind of like you didn't have to be in the movie other than to maybe get rid of some characters
Yeah.
or something. But the way they go out is super creepy and brutal, and it's
Well, I think
just
like his early career, he did more horror-oriented stuff, I believe, like slasher and like more gory stuff. So like, I think like Lord of the Rings was like a complete shift
yeah,
in his work. So,
uh-huh,
um,
One thing I wanted to throw out there, you were talking about the original score for King Kong.
yeah.
So that was the first time a sound film was accompanied by an original non-diegetics score, which paralleled, supported, and enhanced the narrative. So basically, like it wasn't just like random music; it actually was trying to amp up the feeling
Yeah.
of each moment. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So, another really pivotal in terms of like cinema and using music in cinema. So it's like for some of the other ones on my list, as far as like creature features go, pretty much anything Godzilla. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan. My favorite character has always been probably Rodan, as far as like all the ones go. But I do also love Mothra, because you can't not love Mothra unless you don't. In which case, what's wrong with you? I have on my list, kind of weird. Technically, I would consider it a creature feature, or at least part of it. So there's a movie that I've shown at movie night before, that is called The Trilogy of Terror. It is a 3-part, like kind of anthology movie, I guess is how I would say it, because like there's these little vignettes, and Karen Black, who I guess was in Easy Riders, where she got her fame, which I didn't know, but she's like the main actress in all 3 of these, plays like 4 different roles. But there's the last one. She plays this character that brings home, I guess, what's called like a Zuni fetish doll, which is like a little wooden statue thing that it was supposed to be a gift for like her date or something, and it ends up containing the spirit, like this evil spirit of like a warrior or something. I think it was called like the name literally translated, which is like he who kills, and so it is supposed to have this necklace on it that keeps the spirit at bay.
Mhm.
and that falls off, and so it ends up like coming alive and chasing her around the house at one point, like with a little knife. Which I mean, at that point, I would consider it kind of a creature feature.
Huh.
But I really like the design of the doll. Like I think it just sounds hilarious. Like as it's chasing her, it just goes like the entire time. It's hilarious. It's hilarious to me. So that one's on my list. Trilogy of Terror, at least last time I checked, I think is on YouTube. At least parts of it are. That one is for sure. But as far as like Man vs. Beast or like other ones, I'd say an honorable mention for me is The Frogs. Which, I mean, I'm also a huge fan of The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. The Birds it's a pretty perfect movie in my mind, and extremely well done, and understandable why like certain people are afraid of birds after seeing this movie. But The Frogs is kind of, I believe it came out definitely after that, and it was playing on that terror of like animals in general. But in this case, it's more of a man versus nature thing almost, because the movie itself has this old guy who kind of lives out in the middle of nowhere, maybe in Louisiana, like New Orleans or something, and he hates nature. Like absolutely hates it. So like he has the people who work for him like put poison in the pond to try and kill off any fish and frogs and like everything else. And so like the wildlife around his house just start getting fed up with this. And so like weirdly, the frogs specifically are the ones that like apparently orchestrated everything.
Interesting.
So there's a moment where, and there are several deaths throughout this film. One person is, I believe, at least gets, I think, bitten by snakes. Another person falls in and gets covered in leeches, I think, and I guess just gets its blood drained that way. Somebody else is covered with webs from like all these spiders in the trees, that literally just throwing down webs, and then basically like bite it to death. I think I'm pretty sure there's a gator fight or like a crocodile fight somewhere in there, and then the movie ends with the old guy just sitting alone in his giant house as like the glass is broken and then frogs are starting to surround him. It's kind of a weird one.
Is this an older movie?
Yes. It's like 70s or 80s when it came out.
The Frogs.
It's very interesting. But I'm a fan. I know I see one on your list and my list, Lake Placid.
Yeah, Lake Placid. What is it? Is it a crocodile or an alligator?
I think it's an alligator.
Yeah. Okay, it's an alligator. Yeah. Like I don't remember what years they were released, but like Lake Placid and Anaconda, kind of came out. I think somewhat around the same time
Probably.
frame. But because I always like these types of movies, like alligator is running rampant in the lake of Placid and or an anaconda. I mean, these are good go-to animals that can eat us.
Oh, definitely.
But I've always liked Lake Placid because that one's not just a horror movie though. It's very much like a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And
Well, like that one, I love it because Betty White is in that movie.
Yeah.
And she curses like a sailor the entire time. And it is just delightful. I mean, I love Betty White in general, so just getting to see a different role for her is just love. It's just lovely.
Well, in that movie, like she plays her character like her husband had died in that movie, and then they kind of piece together that maybe he didn't die by natural causes, like she's like alluding to, because she's actually feeding the alligator, and in that movie, like when I like the ending too, and she's feeding little alligator babies too. So, but that movie was really good because of the dark humor in it, or the comedy that they had in it. So it's a very entertaining movie.
There's kind of a similar one that came out, I think, on the Sci-Fi Channel that I vaguely remember it just now. Have you ever heard of Frankenfish?
No.
I only remember certain things about it because my brother and my dad watched it one of the few times we actually had cable growing up, and it's kind of similar to Lake Placid, but it's almost like a piranha, but like way bigger. and like it's kind of like half lizard, half fish. I don't remember how to describe it, but it's another similar kind of Lake Placid-ish type.
Well, I like creature features because, like, even if they're not great, they're still kind of like entertaining to
Oh,
see
definitely.
like characters usually do stupid things and they
That's
get some
true.
killed. And one such movie so Lake Placid, you mentioned the Sci-Fi Channel,
Yeah.
and Lake Placid actually spawned a couple sequels, but they were made for TV sequels. So, and I think the Lake Placid 2, I think takes place in the same. I think they all take place at Lake Placid. I mean, it's Lake Placid sequels. And the second one, Betty White's character returns, but it's played by a different actor. But and then since it's on the Sci-Fi Channel, the like 3D effects and stuff are definitely downgraded a little
Yeah.
bit, and it's just like kind of like cartoony, and
Okay.
in the way the characters kind of talk, it's like really heightened,
Interesting.
low budget corniness. But
Okay.
I've seen. There might even be a Lake Placid 4, but because there's a couple of these things that they were just churning out,
Oh, wow.
like year after year. But I liked putting them on because they're just so stupid, and how ridiculous that they try to make these alligators be. But
Yeah.
so I don't know if I'd recommend watching the sequels, but
Do the alligators get bigger in the sequels, like with the sequels of Jaws?
I think I don't. No, not really. I don't think they get bigger, but there's
Okay.
like more of them or something.
Ah.
But the way they act and it's just so ridiculous and not great. And but I watched them all. And Anaconda I liked a lot too.
I have seen
like
bits of that one. I haven't watched it in its entirety, but
oh man, you've got some movies to watch.
I do.
Because that one has Owen Wilson in it,
Oh, wow.
Jennifer Lopez, and others. uh,
I have seen some of the deaths. Like, don't they actually like one of the guys that die? Like it almost has like a camera as like he goes up through the throat of the snake.
like a like a first person POV
Yeah.
type of thing. No,
okay.
not in that one. There is a sequel to Anaconda that's possible. It's called
Maybe that's what it is.
Anacondas. But I'm
Well,
not
maybe
sure.
that's what I'm thinking of.
I'm not sure if that's in that though. I've seen that once in theaters. But so
Gotcha.
I don't remember. So I almost don't think so. But there is a part in the first Anaconda when, oh gosh, who is Angelina Jolie's dad?
I can think of it, but I can't. Like, I can kind of picture it, but it's no, it's
John Voight. Okay.
yes.
So John Voight plays the oh gosh, he's like what?
I think he's the one I was thinking about because I'm sure several people get eaten. He specifically gets like swallowed whole, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At the end, he does get swallowed whole, and
Okay.
well, and in that movie, he does get swallowed whole, but the anaconda spits him back out,
Huh?
and when he gets spit back out, he like winks at
What? With the anaconda wings, or he does?
no, he does. Um, I don't know.
Bizarre. Okay.
It is bizarre. And the anaconda like spits him out. Who's the main survivors in that movie? It's Angelina Jolie and not Angelina Jolie. Jennifer Lopez and whoever is the other. Owen Wilson dies in that movie. But
Oh wow.
gosh, I don't remember who else survived in that movie. It's two characters, but or maybe it was Ice. Is Ice? Who?
I think Ice Cube is in that movie.
one? Oh man.
From what I see from the trailers.
Well, but Anaconda, like watching Cocaine Bear, like there's a certain sense of like ridiculousness to it, and
Yeah.
Anaconda never goes that way.
Gotcha.
Until it spits up John Voight and he winks at the surviving characters.
Interesting.
But whatever.
I see. We should probably start moving on to the movie, but before we do, I do notice one of the ones on your list, and I was thinking about it as well. Arachnophobia.
Yeah.
That is something like, so in the past and still in general, I'm not a fan of spiders that much. Like I've started to tolerate their existence because they are good for.
Well, that makes for a good horror movie too.
It does. I remember watching this. I watched this in college, and I was sitting on the edge of my bed in my dorm room, and anytime a spider would drop, I would like jump back. Because it just, jump scares are a thing. But like the ending of Arachnophobia is kind of comical to me, because you have is it Jeff Daniels
Yes.
as the main character, and he's fighting the main spider, and like he not only sets them on fire, but like he like shoots a nail gun into it as it like pins itself to a board, and like it just it being on fire and pinned to a board and like flailing around.
Uh-huh.
Like that part of it's comical to me. The rest of it is sufficiently creepy.
Well, yeah, because they do things in that movie like there's a couple who's eating popcorn watching a TV show, and then of course the spider falls into the popcorn,
Uh-huh.
and you see it crawling on the top of the popcorn just as the one guy like reaches in and
Oh,
grabs,
yeah.
grabs it, and you're just watching it, and you're just like, ooh, no. And there's a part in the movie where like one of the young women are taking a shower, and as she's running,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
running water over her face and stuff, a spider like falls on her actual face and
Mm-hmm.
down her body. And she doesn't ever become aware of it, and it goes down the drain. But
Yeah.
but
There's a
it
lot of
really-
moments of like you
it-
expect something to happen.
It really like the movie's called Arachnophobia, and they really like play into people's little spider fears.
They
in that
do.
Movie,
Like,
so
well, there's a moment too in that movie where like I think it's like the old lady like goes to like shut off a lamp, and all of a sudden like as soon as she goes to pull the cord, boom,
that's right.
and there's sometimes like, and that's one of the things I love about certain horror films is like they'll either like prey on your fear of that, like, so sometimes things won't happen when you expect them to, and then other times they're just they happen anyway. And so like Arachnophobia is a great one to watch. It probably will freak you out. It freaks me out, but
So before we get into our review, have you seen Piranha 3D?
I haven't. I want to, because so one of the other shows that I listen to is How Did This Get Made, which has Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas and Joan Diane Raphael, and at least Paul Scheer I think is in that movie, and he admits that it's not a great movie by any means, but it looks really fun.
Well, so I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are on Cocaine Bear, but like, so yeah, Piranha 3D, it's not a serious movie. It's like, I mean, and I think it's scary-ish, but it's like so over the top.
Because it really plays on the tropes.
Yeah, it really plays on the
Okay.
tropes, and plus they're piranhas, and they're like piranhas don't actually behave in the way that they're depicted in this movie, but the beginning of what's his name.
There's somebody pretty famous in that movie too.
Yeah, at the beginning. Okay, I'm going to look up the Jaws cast. Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, he's in the
I-
movie. Okay.
I think he's in the beginning of the first one, and
Oh,
he's like
gotcha.
a grumpy fisherman, and he falls into the water, and the piranha get him, and I think they devour his whole lower half or something like
gosh.
that. But the beginning of that movie really sets the tone of the rest of
Mm.
the movie, which means it's just going to be a bonkers. It's just a
Mhm.
bonkers movie. So like there's a lot of tropes that they just kind of lean into, but they really go over the top with the piranhas being piranhas
Yeah.
and devouring people, leaving them as like skeletal remains and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then I think there's a Piranha 3D,
Huh.
but I think there's two other sequels after that. But Piranha 1 and 2 are just so crazy, and they reminded me a lot of like Cocaine Bear. Gave me a lot of Piranha 3D kind of
Okay.
vibes because of the way it's over the top and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So if you do like Cocaine Bear and you haven't seen Piranha 3D, check that out because it's a little bit in the same spirit. I'd say.
Fair enough. Before we take a break and get into Cocaine Bear, I did find a list of, according to IGN, the best man vs. beast movies to watch before watching Cocaine Bear. So Jaws is on that list.
Good.
Jurassic Park is on that list. The original King Kong. The Ghost and the Darkness is one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, that one has Michael Douglas
And
in
Val
it,
Kilmer.
and Val Kilmer, and they're
Killer
being,
Lions, I think.
yeah, they're being attacked by killer lions in a tribe or section of wherever they're at is getting. Yeah,
So you've seen that one?
I seen it, and
Okay.
it's good.
So that's on the list. Cujo is on there. The original Piranha. The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock, which is excellent. Anaconda, Arachnophobia, Lake Placid. The last two on the list are the Brotherhood of the Wolf, which I am not familiar with, and The Gray, which I know about but I have not seen. It's a Liam Neeson,
Yep.
I believe.
I have seen it. Don't really remember it very much, but he is attacked by them wolves, and I'm surprised that Anaconda 3D wasn't on that list then, right?
It was not. No.
And maybe it's because it's so over the top, but And Deep Blue Sea should have been in on that.
I thought about that one
list.
too, because that one's like super like hyper smart sharks.
Yeah.
Which I've only seen bits and pieces of that as well. But I do want to watch that one just because just of how ridiculous it is.
Uh-huh.
And like Sharknado's not on here anywhere. Neither is Birdemic, and those are
Right.
both crazy movies.
I bet like maybe if we watch a review a shark movie, there's a lot of shark movies out there.
That is
to
true.
talk about. And of course I don't know if you've seen many or all of them, but like because Deep Blue Sea and The Shallows, there's a lot of good shark movies that's come out in the last couple of years.
And I know one of your favorites is Meg.
Nope. Okay, so that we talk about some of our favorite creature features / man vs. beast movies, but let's go into a break before we talk about our review of Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear. All right, we are back from our break, and we're here to talk about Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear.
So, Cocaine Bear, let me read the synopsis here we got here for it. An oddball group of cops, criminals, tourists, and teens converge on a Georgia forest where a huge black bear goes on a murderous rampage after unintentionally ingesting cocaine.
And that really tells you all you need to know about this movie. It is okay. So this came out this year, 2023. Budget of 30 to 35 million. In the box office, from what I could tell, made 86.1 million. So I mean, it definitely made up its budget. I am so surprised by who directed this movie.
And who directed this movie?
Elizabeth Banks. I know I've seen some of her work. Like I've definitely seen her work, but like I don't know. It's not a name I would associate with something as over the top as this is. So like, because she's a pretty big star, and this very much feels like a B movie horror, kind of thing. And so like, not to say that it's beneath her, but in some ways it feels like maybe it should be. I don't know.
Elizabeth Banks has previously directed the 2019 Charlie's Angels and Pitch Perfect 2.
So this is her third directorial movie.
Well, those are the first three I see on this list. I think I think she technically has directed another, but I would have to check her instant movie database. But
gotcha.
But all the same, I've seen a lot of her stuff as an actress, so so it is interesting what she's directing and to choose this project to do. So that's that's interesting to see how that came about.
Definitely. I will say, so fun fact quick about this, or I guess maybe not fun, or however you want to say it, but so this is Ray Liotta's last movie before he passed away. And the movie is in fact dedicated to him. But it's just, I am so surprised that he is also in this movie. Granted, like, I haven't seen a lot of his work beyond probably Goodfellas. Like, I know he's in other stuff, but I don't know. I was very surprised to see him in this as well.
Well, maybe you should watch more of his movies. He's in a lot of good stuff.
I believe that.
So what were? Let me pull back up my Milano here. So, but super interesting the talent behind the camera with Elizabeth Banks doing that, and it is really fun to see actors like Ray Liotta be in this movie, which I don't think it's a real a
big shocker.
Big shocker for him to be in this movie. He plays a drug.
I mean, I guess
dealer
that isn't shocking. I'm just the level of talent that is behind and in this movie is a little surprising to me because of the content of the movie. That's not to say that there haven't been like super famous people in like movies like this in the past. So I guess I shouldn't be that shocked. But so what are your general thoughts on this movie?
This movie is pretty interesting. I was trying to debate like what do I think about this movie having watched it. There's a lot of things I do like about it, and so I really do like these types of movies because they're just simple. They're usually pretty good and entertaining.
I would agree.
Even if they're not super great, and I'm not sure where Cocaine Bear maybe falls on this line of greatness, but I do have a review score that I'll give it to later. But I I thought a lot of this movie was really fun. Now it's called Cocaine Bear, so I'm like expecting like extreme levels of everything. I'm not totally sure it delivered on that. Maybe.
I kind
But
of had the same feeling about that. Like you mentioned earlier that it's kind of ridiculous, and it definitely is. But I was expecting more ridiculousness and over
uh-huh.
the top with this movie, and I feel like I fell a little short of that, of my own personal expectations.
So what is this movie even rated? Is it rated R?
It is rated R, I'm pretty sure.
It's rated R. Okay. Well,
Well, yeah, it would have to be not only for the language, but for the level of I was gonna say gore.
gore.
I guess gore fits.
Well, so I was expecting like just absolute insane craziness, and there are moments in this movie where they kind of go there, like they
Yeah.
go there, but it doesn't. They don't like carry it through maybe the whole movie.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And especially towards maybe even the end, I think was kind of like muted compared to everything that came before. Um, um, but when it does go kind of crazy, it's at its most fun, and
Yes.
I kind of wish it did like go more with the gore and things like that, because like like movies like this, I think it's really easy to come up with some disposable characters that
Yeah.
are only there to get eaten or mold in this case or something like that. But they didn't quite. I don't think they quite did that,
Yeah.
and at least in my opinion. But the movie starts pretty strong, I think, with these two hikers that see the bear, and they don't.
Yeah.
They just think it's just a bear that they're taking doing photos of. But Cocaine Bear did cocaine, so Cocaine Bear going to do what a cocaine bear do,
That's true.
and that's kill unprovoked, do
Well, I mean,
unprovoked killings and things like that. So overall, I liked the movie, but I think it just could have gone a lot more into like the deaths and the horror.
yeah,
And just,
I would agree with that. I do think this is one of those movies that I think it's better to watch with a group of people. Because I think there are several that are like that. Like this one, I think would be fun on its own, but I think we watched it together at movie night, with one of our other friends, and I think doing that and kind of getting to see and hear each other's reactions to things, make it more of an enjoyable experience rather than just like on your own going ooh or ah. Not that everyone reacts like that, but like it just. I don't know. I think it's more enjoyable to hear and see the people around you reacting to the same things that you're reacting to, and that just makes it a more fun experience. But so should we go ahead and get into the spoilers of this movie?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into spoilers and talk
Okay.
more in depth about stuff.
All right. So to kind of kick this off, by the way, I want to talk about. So Elizabeth Banks was giving. She was doing an interview, and she was asked about this movie. And so I just kind of want to read what she said about it, as far as like the theme and what kind of things that you didn't expect. So here's what she says. She says, "You when it comes to like man versus nature, she said, you think you understand who the villain is in the movie, and then at a certain point we trip the scales, and you start to realize, oh right, the bear didn't do anything wrong. The bear is innocent. It just wants more cocaine. I mean, it's been fed by the bad guys." So to me, that was also the theme of the movie that I wanted to explore: man's hubris when it comes to animals, or when it comes to nature. This idea that we feel like we can control nature, we can control animals, that we're on top of the food chain, and that's kind of like the most that there's a little bit more to that, what she says, but that's kind of like the main thing. And I would agree with that to a certain extent. Like, not that you necessarily sympathize with anybody in this movie, but it really, like, nothing that happens is necessarily the bear's fault. It's just, it's a wild animal that happened to get a hold of drugs.
Yeah.
And that fuels what happens. I mean, I've never been on cocaine, so I don't know what that experience is like, but I imagine it would make you like just hyper energetic all the time.
Well, maybe you should do some more research then before coming to a movie review like this.
Research,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
More research. Well, and in that sense, I do agree. Like in the movie is set up. It even has the title cards at the beginning about bears.
Yeah.
And how they bear attacks, and they give us some like as cited by from
That was actually pretty
Wikipedia
hilarious.
from Wikipedia, which why not? I mean, um, so it's nothing's grounded in like super reality, even though this is based on a true event of where cocaine did drop from an airplane. A bear ingested it, but it didn't go on a murderous rampage. It just
It pretty
died.
much died immediately of an
It
overdose.
just
Yeah.
died from an overdose because it consumed so much of the cocaine at once. I
Yeah.
think they went because I think they cut open the bear and did an autopsy or see what was in its stomach contents. There's like just so much cocaine
I
in this
believe it.
bear.
Which apparently, the body of that bear, like, apparently, since they did find it, I think I read that like Waylon Jennings apparently owned it at one point, and I guess it's they affectionately named it Pablo Escobar.
Pablo Escobar. Yeah, and it's on display
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't remember where. I did watch a video about it, but you could probably look that up on YouTube and find its whereabouts and do a little pilgrimage to Cocaine Bear. But some of the things I did like about this movie is well, one, a movie like this, you have to really set the tone at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know how successful it was, but I liked that Carrie Russell's husband is the character at the beginning of the movie in the airplane. He's the one dumping the cocaine bags out of the movie, out of the plane. And just before he jumps out of the plane, he hits his head on the airplane door and gets knocked out, and then he ultimately dies.
Right. Which not only, I mean, that's pretty funny just in general, like that, the fact that it happens. In real life, apparently the guy that did this, they say his parachute malfunctioned, potentially because he had strapped so much cocaine to himself. And so that might have been the cause. So he just literally fell to his death, like fully conscious, I would guess, unless he passed out at some point. So in this case, it's probably better that he passed out as he was falling or before he fell. I mean, hopefully he didn't come to, because then he wouldn't have had to experience the actual like shock of his own death. But it also, like, interestingly, the movie kind of opens after that with actual what seems to be actual footage of the news at the time when this happened, which is really kind of a fun touch. Like, you don't really see that in a lot of movies. I feel like.
And then it just stirs away to its own like rewritten history. But,
yes.
But what I like though is like the movie doesn't dwell on how the cocaine got there.
No.
It just like the movie opens as like plane, cocaine being dumped.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to know. Let's get to it.
I will say one thing that's kind of interesting about this movie, and I don't know if you felt this or not, but none of the characters in this movie, like they all have names, but like it seems like they are so rarely mentioned throughout this movie that like there are certain characters, like there are the main two kids, which are Dee Dee and I think David maybe or
Henry?
Eddie.
Is it Henry?
No, it's Henry. You're right, because I remember there's somebody who says "Oh Henry" at some point, and I made a joke about that. So yeah, Dee Dee and Henry, I remember those specifically, or at least Dee Dee anyway, because the mom calls for her so much, and like I just call that character the mom because I guess her name was maybe mentioned. At least it is in the casting.
Mm-hmm.
But like them, and then like Sid, which is Ray Liotta's character, and then the Ranger. But like other than that, like it just kind of felt like you were dropped into this movie. Like all these characters are just there, and like they don't really refer to each other that much.
So in the movie with the kids, and I like the kids a lot, and I kind of wish they were like
More of it.
more incorporated into it, because the girl gets either chased away or she gets gone.
Yeah.
But which I thought was a little too bad because I really liked the setup with these characters. So a lot of people probably have not done cocaine, and so these kids are like audience surrogate to cocaine a little bit. And I thought it was really cute that the boy was pretending like, oh yeah, I've done cocaine for sure. And then she's like, well, prove it by doing some. And they don't know how to do cocaine because they're kids.
Right.
And
so like he takes the knife, or she takes the knife and like opens it up like a pro, and then just takes a bite of the cocaine.
They just eat it.
Yeah. Which that should in theory also get you high, I would guess, because it's going into your system. I mean, I have no idea. So
Well, they spit it out, so maybe it didn't take full effect
that's probably
if it
true.
did, but they certainly tasted whether or not it was good quality or not.
That's true.
As
According
they
to
did.
according to Henry, it was so much that it was worse than what he normally does.
But I just thought it was really funny how they incorporated the kids
Yeah.
introducing us to cocaine and
Mhm.
what that's kind of like. I'm surprised like no character like actually did cocaine to like deal with the situation. Like really, they
Yeah.
accidentally did cocaine.
Yeah, some of them like kind of literally fall into it at some points. Yeah, it like almost like from the almost from the get go of this movie, things ramp up pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Because you have there are several different groups of characters that kind of eventually like converge, sort of, kind of. So like there are the kids who are off kind of doing their thing, and you have the mom who's trying to find them, and you have this other group. There's like the ranger and the person that she's super like she has a major crush on. I can't tell if he reciprocates that or not. That come in, and like apparently there's also these teenagers that are like mugging people in the park,
Yeah.
and they try and mess with the two drug dealers that were sent to go retrieve the cocaine, and it's just crazy. Like he ends up getting like beating them up in like 15 seconds.
yeah, yeah. A little fight scene out of nowhere,
Yeah,
and it didn't require cocaine.
it did not. It was just nuts in general. And like they take one of them with them to find where they stashed some of the cocaine these teenagers found, and like the rest of them, like the bear attacks pretty early on. Not only with like the hikers we see at the beginning, but I think like the first major attack after that is it the ranger?
Maybe.
I think it's the ranger. Well, at the very least, like it definitely attacks the ranger and like literally like takes a bite out of her rear end, and like she ends up like leaving everyone else and
Yeah.
going back to the station
Yeah,
with her giant revolver.
yeah. I did. I think because that's when the little boy is. Is that when they're in the trees?
Yes,
And
yeah. Which was crazy enough as it is. That scene.
So so there's definitely some good parts in that, and where they kind of started up. They were upping the gore and stuff.
Yes.
So that one of the well, I'm going to call him one of the park rangers, but he's not really. He's one of the guys climbs up the tree too.
Oh, the guy with the
Well,
mustache?
he's supposed to be like the bear expert.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, like animal expert, I would say.
Yeah, animal expert, and and he climbs up the bear too, and the kid informs him that. Well, he asked him if bears can climb trees, I think, or something like that, and it's like, yeah, bears can climb trees. So like, why did you climb up here too?
And he's like, I don't know.
But that's like when we get one of our first really over the top deaths.
Oh, yeah.
that guy gets.
Oh my gosh, that death is so like. So the bear jumps down or like goes down from this one tree that was where the kid was at to the adjacent tree where the guy is at, like climbs up it, and then just like starts mauling him to death as he's like hanging, like his arms and his face are hanging down this way, and like you just see blood dripping through him as he's screaming. It's so ridiculous.
And then finalized by him falling on his neck.
Oh yeah, that did happen too. Like was like, oh my god. Like there's a weird thing in this movie too with when it comes to like the limbs being severed from, like it seems to be like legs specifically. Like just come like legs specifically come flying out of the bushes. Because it happens at the beginning with the hikers, and it happens to that guy, and it happens to at least one other person later on. And then he gets kind of backtracks to the ranger station a little bit after this, where the teenagers that were causing problems, and the ranger's there, and she accidentally shoots one of the teenagers and leaves a massive hole in his face, which is just insane. And then like the ambulance people come, and it just, oh my gosh, there's so much happening.
So that starts the sequence, which I think is the best sequence in the movie, when the ambulance paramedics arrive,
Yeah.
and on scene, and the bear's trapped in a closet. Because this is when the movie like really takes off for me and lives up to the level of Cocaine Bear that I would imagine Cocaine Bear be. Because
Yeah.
I wish it kind of like kept going after this
Yeah, I would
sequence,
agree.
which was a long sequence because the bear gets released from the
closet, yeah.
or whatever it's on, and then it's and so then the guy's being crushed by the door on the bear, and Uh, and then things just kind of keep escalating into what was the craziest part of the movie, I thought, which was when the bears chasing them
The
on the
ambulance.
ambulance.
Yeah.
And and one thing because one thing I did appreciate, 'cause some of these characters who they've been building up, we have the park ranger who's
hmm
got like some kind of a crush on the animal expert
Yeah.
or something, but no one is safe here in this movie.
Oh,
They're
no.
like no one, no one's gonna like make it, but people get killed off in pretty surprising quick
hmm
ways. And I think with the park ranger on the ambulance is one of the
Oh, that was one of the most brutal.
most bonkers thing.
It's like she gets pulled out of the ambulance and like flipped over onto her face and dragged along the asphalt.
Because she's strapped to the paramedic table.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I mean, she can't do
bed.
anything.
yeah.
So like it's just brutal because like you see here like, and I think I don't know if all three of us did it, but like I know like Michael and I were going, oh God,
Yeah.
it's just so bad.
Yeah, I had no idea that was that was kind of like such a great surprise on how things just escalated really
Yeah.
quickly. Because we've watched some other movies together, like that new that Santa Claus movie.
Oh,
Santa. What was that called?
it was literally on the screen last night when we were looking through other movies.
That's right.
Silent. No, it's not Silent Deadly Night. It's the one that has David Harbour.
Yes. Violent Night.
Yes, that's what it is.
So like that was the first so Violent Night is a totally different movie, but that's one where they just kept going with the violent deaths.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that horror aspect. So that is kind of what I wish was kind of more applied to Cocaine
Yeah, I
Bear.
completely agree.
Because that ambulance sequence definitely delivers on that in that.
Well, especially like when
regard.
the bear chases it down and like literally like leaps through the air
Yeah.
to like jump into the back of it, which is just insane. Yeah, I wanted more. I wanted more like that in the movie as well because it. I guess I didn't know what to expect necessarily, but like just based on the name of this movie, I was expecting more like over the top. Like I don't know, not that I wanted him to go through like an amusement park or something,
Right.
but like I don't know, that could have been great.
Something with more campers
Yeah,
or
like,
something.
yeah, it would have been more interesting. Along with Cocaine Bear, there's also kind of a weird other subplot with this cop who ends up coming to this area because he apparently he's been chasing Ray Liotta's character for years, along
Right.
with like every other character, and he has this weird thing where like, it didn't really feel like it needed to be in the movie. He has this thing about like he wanted to get a dog, and like he ends up getting one that's like a, for lack of a better way to put it, like a frou-frou dog, like it's super fancy looking, and like it just didn't really feel like it was necessary to be there. Like it's just there, like it's for like 2 moments of like comedy, and like that was really it. And he dies pretty quickly in this movie as well.
Well, we don't see him actually die, but
Well, actually, that's a fair point.
he is left somewhere.
He was left on top of the gazebo.
But yeah, I guess he's just it's fine.
Yeah,
His character and that stuff.
he was there.
He's there. He's looking for Ray Liotta, maybe.
I think he was chasing him, but he was. I don't know. He got a tip because some truckers overheard the 2 guys who were sent to go get the cocaine talking about it. So that's how he got informed, I guess. I want to talk about one of the most insane deaths, or like the most brutal, I guess, which is Ray Liotta's death.
Okay, talk about it.
So this is the point in the movie where like it's really kind of coming to a head, and like the Ray Liotta's character is like forcing the other people to like get the cocaine as much as they can to take back to like whoever his contacts were, and they go to the bear's cave, and you see 2 little baby bear cubs who are also getting into the cocaine, which they don't really do anything particularly like angry or like harmful to anybody other than just like wanting to play. But like so they go out to around the other end of the cave, which is like right behind a waterfall, and there's another sack of cocaine that's stuck on a branch, and it like pans up to see the main bear, the mama bear, on top of the waterfall, like breathing in more cocaine. And then like I think it tries to like come down, or it does come down over the branch and like is between everybody, and the other characters like the drug dealer and the guy who was with him and the mom and the children jump off into the river. And then so kind of like Ray Liotta's character is left there to try and like kill the bear, and like it slashes his belly and like his intestines fall out, and the baby bear cubs start like chomping on his intestines before he ends up falling off into the river. And like just to see like our friend, like I wasn't necessarily freaked out by that, but like I was like, oh wow, that's gruesome. And our friend Michael, who was with us, was like, oh, he was truly horrified. So like his reaction was glorious.
Something about guts spilling out and people trying to hold it back, keep it in.
Well, just to be like alive
always-
during that situation, like, oh
Yeah.
God, like I don't even want to imagine that.
Oh man.
I'm trying to think of there. One of the more ridiculous moments as well. There was one of the other legs or somebody else who had one of the severed limbs that had cocaine on it. The bear literally like did a line off of the severed limb.
And that I appreciated.
That was a great moment. That was so over the top. And that made me genuinely happy. It's like that is what I want to see. Ridiculous stuff like this. And so yeah, I would agree. I think this movie, it has really good moments like that where it's over the top and it's really fun and it's like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Right.
And then there are moments where like the rest of the movie just kind of falls short of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I feel like you could use, like, if anything's like so bonkers, like why is this doesn't make sense, and you just have to say like, cocaine, man, cocaine bear,
Yeah.
cocaine bear. But so they have that excuse to just go like really
go
wild,
crazy.
and I didn't feel like it really did. And the ending, like, I do agree with. I think Elizabeth Banks is successful in like the bear isn't the
villain.
true villain.
Yeah.
It's Ray Liotta. It's drugs. It's we have to be worried about the drugs, not the bear,
Oh, definitely.
because drugs are bad. And so I think that was successful, but I think it was just not as nearly as bonkers as anything that came before. Because then it's because Ray Liotta as a threat isn't like so much of a threat to me,
No.
other than he has drugs. He's kind of jerk to his son.
Yeah.
He left his grandson just watching TV
Uh-huh.
somewhere. So like it wasn't as big of a payoff for me as I was wanting. And yeah, I think that's the one big problem with this movie is like it just doesn't keep going.
It doesn't go hard enough.
It doesn't go hard enough, and it
Yeah.
really should, especially with an R rating. And
It has a license to do way more than it did.
because we've already watched the Violent Night movie, and I just recently watched John Wick 4, and there's a lot of violence in those movies throughout, like
Yeah.
the whole thing, and they play up to that to make us squeamish or something. 'Cause,
Oh yeah.
bear attacks are no joke, but they could have been in this movie.
Oh, definitely. Well,
and
like,
they should have been.
you mentioned Violent Night. Like one of the most ridiculous, over the top moments in that movie is where like he goes up the chimney and like takes the guy with him, and like he just gets like dismembered as he's going up. Like it's so brutal
Yeah.
and over the top. But like you sit like, I mean, I don't know what anybody else is thinking. Like you just kind of sitting there like reveling in this. Like, oh my God, that's awesome.
There's-
Like it's terrible, but it's awesome.
Because there's a part where the bear pushes his hand through the window on a door, the glass on
yeah!
the door,
Like, grabs the kid's face.
and grabs the kid's face. But then it cuts away from that,
Yeah.
and so I like wonder why, because it's like maybe that would be a little too much to see a bear just go
Maybe-
slash through a guy's face. But I want to see that.
Well, actually, so it's interesting you bring that up because in some of the trivia I was pulling up on this movie, the hiker that the other hiker that survived,
Yeah.
apparently, and I guess I didn't catch it when we were going through the rest of this movie. So he does, I guess, get killed by the bear. Apparently, like it's kind of like a split second thing, like you just see his body.
Oh, really?
So I didn't remember seeing it, but there's supposed to be a moment where like apparently they had a shot of him dying, and like they had like a pretty like impressive like prosthetic or like makeup for like the face being ripped off.
Oh, wow.
That Elizabeth Banks felt was just maybe too much for the movie, so she decided to take it out. Which I don't know. I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I want to see this movie go harder. So like maybe if they were to do a sequel, like I would rather it go through like go into a city or something, like wander into a city and get more cocaine, or maybe the next one it's on LSD. I don't know.
Cocaine bears is what they can call it.
It's
Just
true.
up the bears and up the cocaine.
I do think there's a missed opportunity in this movie to use the Bare Necessities song from Jungle Book. As it's just getting super high. Like it should have been like playing. It should have been some of the diegetic music that was playing in the background. Like somebody should have just been listening to it. That would have been hilarious to me. So I guess maybe we should let's talk about rating this movie.
Yeah, let's give this movie a rating. I think we've talked about it enough.
I would agree. Devin, what would you rate this movie? Well, I guess we should say, so on our rating scale, we do have avoid, meh, solid, great, and superb. What would you rate this movie?
I would probably rate it as solid. I'm gonna give it a solid rating. Because it's not quite meh to me. Because there's moments of pure delight
Mm-hmm.
in the carnage of Cocaine Bear,
Yeah.
and that will make you high as a kite. And but it doesn't, like, it needed to be more of everything, I think, and it just needed to go a little more wild. And because with this kind of a premise, you can go wild, and they just didn't quite do that all the
Yeah.
time. There was definitely moments where full on wild, and I would have just loved to just have that keep happening in some ways. But I enjoyed it because I thought it was really funny. I liked the little character, the young children in the movie. I wish there was more of them too.
Yeah.
And I like some of the other bonkers characters, and I like how some of them are a little ridiculous and not necessarily likable, but they don't last very long. And,
True.
But there, there's a lot of elements from these types of movies that are present here that I really like. So I'm gonna probably watch this again and over time. So it's a really fun watch that doesn't really challenge you too much. But
Yeah.
so in that regard, I'd call it a solid, I guess, overall.
Okay. I think for myself, I think it's going to be between meh and solid. Probably closer to solid than meh. But it just, I was hoping and expecting it to go so much harder than it did.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it falls pretty short on that for me is, it was disappointing in that regard. And I also think that, like, I don't know, like how much it jumps around between different characters. I think I kind of wish all of them had come together.
Yeah.
Rather than it being scattered.
That would have been fun, I think.
So I think it kind of falls short in that regard as well. I do think the level of carnage that we do get to see and the level of craziness when it really peaks, I think is fantastic. And I think it's really fun. Like I said before, I think it is one of those movies that I think it is more fun with a group of people to watch. Especially like a group of friends that like you can kind of joke around with as you're watching the movie. I think that just makes it a more enjoyable experience. So for me, it's between meh and solid.
Yeah, and I think because I don't think this movie's bad in any one way.
Not by any means.
I just, when watching it, you just feel like there is potential there that's just not like happening, and that's, so you're kind of like oh, why wouldn't you do this? It'd be so easy to do the thing, and what you said with like more characters like intertwining, like some of the the I don't know what you call them, teenagers, the
Ranger had a
hoodlums.
name for them, but I can't remember.
Like, it would have been really interesting if they paired up with the children.
Yeah.
Or at least that one character who was with the drug dealers, kind of like
super blonde, like bleach blonde.
Yeah, the beach blonde, because like the characters are good in the movie. They just needed more interaction amongst each other.
I completely agree.
And even the park ranger would have been great if the park ranger interacted with more people one-on-one.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
The park ranger was had a type of attitude with interpersonal skills that would have been just really great if they interacted with the children or something along that line. So they had just a lot of good stuff that they just didn't like take it to the full potential on. So
I completely agree. So I think it's definitely worth watching. It's a fun watch. It's very entertaining. But I do think there are other ones out there that if you want a level of crazy, something like Violent Night or Anaconda or you mentioned Deep Blue Sea, stuff like that are even more over the top, like Sharknado
or Piranha 3D. I think I think that's. There's no cocaine involved, but the piranha are psycho in that movie, and they like it's a type of premise where then you could just think of fun ways for people to get eaten or something like that. Like kind of like Final Destination is is the whole
Like, you
premise
can
of
get
like
really creative with how people are getting killed.
yeah,
Which
right.
I don't know what that says about us as people.
Well, we've always you see some of those accident videos that, or I don't know if you've seen like there's like workplace safety
Oh, yeah,
videos
yeah.
and like that I have seen where they don't it's all staged, but they don't and they
Mm-hmm.
don't actually show anything graphic, but they show you up to the point where the graphic
Mm-hmm.
thing can happen, and so that's always amusing. Like
Oh, yeah.
people in like factory jobs or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But whatever. That's why this isn't a movie and not real life. So
Yeah.
you can enjoy the things in the movie and
It's
stuff like
true.
that. So, um, but I think we are pretty much in agreement, and I'd probably agree with like Between the Men solid rating but these types of movies, like, because we just recently saw the movie Beast, and that is not an over the top movie at all, and it's a lot more grounded, but it's for that style of movie.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't like go crazy in that movie because the lion in that movie is not on cocaine. So
Right.
what happened in that movie Beast that came out not too long ago, everything that happens in the movie like makes sense for that tone and
Uh-huh.
all that stuff. So no one's doing wisecracks or no one's beating someone up, a bunch of people up in a bathroom out of nowhere. Um, so different flavor, and I wish it was a stronger one.
Mm-hmm.
So-
I completely agree.
So,
Well, I think that does it for our review of Cocaine Bear.
Yep.
So if you are able to watch it, go watch it and formulate your own opinion on it.
and it's currently available on Peacock.
Yes.
but I think it's also available for
Probably to rent on Amazon, I would imagine.
to rent or buy VOD.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine. I'm guessing. I'm making that up. Anyways, that was our review of Cocaine Bear. Thank you again for watching and listening to another episode of Nerds Now Playing. Nerds Now Playing will be back next week with another review. Until then, see you next time.
See ya.